Um, all right, so we're on. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. And thank you for joining the Daily Huddle. Thank you, David, for being here. Thank you, Saurel, for hosting the Daily Huddle. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Saurel, we're on.
Well, thank you, Giovanni. To our live studio audience, thank you for being here. It makes a big difference for our expert guests to have you to interact with live. And it creates the kind of context and setting where the people who are listening and watching from Australia, the people who are listening and watching from Paris, France, and Haiti or Colombia actually get the sense of the energy that our expert guests get from you. So you play a significant role in making the Daily Huddle what it is. So welcome to your Daily Huddle. Levy, Lorna, Nancy, Rebecca, Jean-Baptiste is here. How about that? Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And as you know, the Daily Huddle is a quick 30-minute conversation, which will be a 23-minute conversation this morning, and where you're left empowered as a small business owner, an executive or CEO with what you need to deal with the circumstances facing your business, and also in a place where you're making effective decisions and producing results for your employees, your families, and your community. And this morning, to create that conversation with us and consider a question that I say is on each of your minds, is my dear friend, David Shavzin. Now, give me a minute to introduce David properly, right? As a business owner, you may currently be dealing with employee issues, cash flow issues, payroll issues, and you may be telling yourself, I'm dealing with that now because of the impact of COVID-19. I'm inviting you to consider that what you're dealing with, maybe you have been dealing with that since day one, meaning you are stuck in your business, working in your business, and the thought of actually emerging from that and dealing with what's next, maybe 3 years from now, has been foreign to you. Well, our expert guest today is going to speak about just that. The one thing that every business owner needs to focus on when COVID-19 is gone, and you can take your attention of the urgent issues. Now, our guest is really qualified to do this. David created his practice called the Value Track in 2000 to help business owners maximize their hard work and get on the value track. He is president and co-founder of Exit Planning Exchange, Atlanta, formed to bring advisors together in a collaborative effort to serve business owners' clients. Exit Planning Exchange is that organization. In his early career, I found out that David spent a little bit of time in Paris. David, you've got to speak French during your introduction, okay?
Absolument.
Absolument. Ah, there we go. He spent a few years at several companies, including assignments with finance, mergers, and acquisitions before transferring to Atlanta. There, he led teams responsible for quality, finance, supply chain, customer service, and information technology functions within a $175 million subsidiary. David is a certified management consultant. What that means is that he's a trusted resource. He will do good by us today, and he will do good by your business should you ever consider hire him, and I think you should. David, thank you for being on the Daily Huddle, and thank you for creating with us our ability to look for the long view. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Saurel. I appreciate the invitation. Thank you, Giovanni. I think I now have to live up to that introduction you just gave. I think we ought to do introductions afterwards. I think that would be better. It's good to see all of you on here. As Saurel says, it makes for a much better interactive situation speaking, and it helps me as I'm talking to see a few faces and a few reactions on the screen anyway. And it's also really a sign of the times, obviously. I'm sure that you, like I have been on Zoom, it seems like every hour of the day for the last few weeks. So we are in different times, but the key thrust of what I wanted to touch on today is that in a lot of ways, Saurel alluded to it, nothing has changed. We have to deal with the urgent, right? If you've got employees, if you're trying to deal with cash, if you've really have been hard hit with the virus in terms of your business, and you've got to get through those things. But at the same time, if you want to come out of this thriving, surviving, and then looking out a few years or more, as Saurel is talking about, then you have to step back and take a look at the business and not just the urgent things. I'm not assuming you all are. It's not easy in 15 minutes to do a lot of back and forth on that, but what I'd like to suggest is, what I'm talking to my clients about on a regular basis is, yeah, you know what, we've got to figure out all these issues with the payroll and the $2 trillion act passed by Congress and how you can take advantage of that. On the loan side of things, the potential for business loans, talk to your banker if you haven't, just to see if there's anything that is there for you. But the big picture is integrating all of these decisions into where you want to be in 6 months and a year. And almost, in one sense, think about it as if the virus didn't happen, but then integrate into some of your decision making and planning issues that have come up because of the virus. So when I talk about the one thing that's important for business owners, the single most thing, when you're looking at the long term, eventually you're going to get out of the business. We're all going to exit the business one way or another at some point in time. And so we talk about focusing on value in your business, right? Whether you're going to look to sell it in 2 years or 10 years or 20 years, or maybe find a business partner and merge the businesses, or maybe transfer it to family, you still want to grow it. And it's not just the top line revenue, but this idea of value of the business, because that's what's going to make a difference if you do go out to sell to somebody. And we talk about specifically transferable business value, which means, well, it doesn't mean that you put your blood, sweat, and tears and passion into the business and it's worth millions and millions of dollars because of that. It's, when we talk about transferable value, it really means what somebody from the outside looking at what you've done with it is willing to pay for it. And so we always talk with our clients and try to get them to think of themselves not as a business owner, okay, think about this for a moment, but as a buyer. Put your head in the mind of the buyer with every decision that you make every day, right? And so if you have we all have decisions to make, hundreds of decisions every day. And the more you can get the reflex of thinking, okay, is this something that I'd like to do, it'd be nice to do, or is this really going to focus on building the value of the company? That might take precedent. In the mix there, think about, even if you have no plans, even if you're just starting up, think about it for a while. Step back, have a cup of coffee, and think about what right now your most likely scenario is to leave the business, or sell the business, or merge, or whatever it happens to be, and give yourself that target to work towards. You can always change that target, but set something out in terms of target and perhaps value of the business that you'd like to walk away from. The other corollary, the other complementary point I want to make is when we talk about exit planning, so many of us do just set it aside because it seems so far off. But here's a little secret just for you. Exit planning is really just running your business really well. If you're doing all the things that you ought to do in your business, and Saurel mentioned really kind of getting out of the day-to-day on a regular basis to think more strategically. But if you're focusing on doing the right things in your business, good business principles and practice, you're a long way down the road in terms of exit planning. Because again, exit planning is good business, and exit planning and value is that transferable value, what somebody else will want. and see in your business, and therefore be willing to pay for it. So what does that mean day to day? You know, again, I think to me, the key areas I see too many of us business owners not doing enough of is stepping back. You can raise your hands virtually or in front of me or not, but think about it. You know, do you have a business plan, even of a few pages? Do you have an idea of where this is going? Again, even before, you know, put yourself in December of 2019. Did you have some sense of a plan and some goal out 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever that happens to be? And then one of the questions I always like to ask, again, I don't know how old all of your businesses are, but again, set aside the virus situation, think back to December, and if you thought about it, were you where you wanted to be with where 2019 ended up when you started your business? If you started your business a few years back, what were you thinking, and have you achieved what you wanted to achieve? So I find a lot of the issues here are that we don't lay out a business plan, and it doesn't have to be 100 pages, but it needs to be laid out, and it needs to have some specifics and some goals, and you can change it, but you need that roadmap. The other thing too many of us do or don't do as business owners, I think, if we start a business, we tend to be that personality that is confident, you know, we're confident in ourselves that we can get things done. And too often we don't bring in advisors around you. And I've learned myself the hard way in not doing that. But the more you can, and I see a lot on the screen right now, and I'm sure there's more watching of all sorts of advisors, right? Everything from marketing and video and digital to all kinds of consulting and operations to coaching. And bring those folks around you, because you just can't do it all. The world is too complex. You've got to have that advisory team around you as you move forward. I'll pause for a moment if there are questions.
I have a question, David.
Yeah.
What are some things that one can do to create value for a business?
Good question. And we have just 10 minutes, so I won't go into the 4-hour answer to that one. But again, it is, I would say, you know, a few different things when you're looking at value. One is, this is the hardest one for business owners to grapple with if they haven't heard it before, and that is make yourself absolutely irrelevant. You know, are you hiring people using outside resources? Are your business processes happening without you having to touch it? We go back to not just value, but transferable value on Giovanni's question. If I'm looking to buy your business, but you as the owner have to be there because you have all the relationships, you're running everything, I'm going to pay a lot less, right? Because you're going to be gone at some point. I'm losing all of that. So if you can transfer all that knowledge down and become irrelevant, that's a big one. The other is, you know, it depends on the business model, but if you have recurring income, and again, all these business models are different depending on what you're doing, but if you have monthly subscriptions, depending on the business where you might be charging a credit card on a regular basis, if you have long-term contracts, again, as a buyer, I am looking at that. That's golden, because what that means is the beginning of the year, January 1st, I walk in and you know already this business has X thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars of income that can be counted on right at the beginning. So anything that you can do in that regard is great. I want to, and I see a couple other questions. I want to just throw one other thought out. I've been blogging a lot on this lately for obvious reasons, and that is we're all being forced into a lot of things these days because of the crisis, right? We're scrambling, we're getting creative. Think about those things that are you're quote unquote being forced into that are actually helping your business and how they might carry you forward after the crisis. So just a quick example, I have a client who has a fitness studio and started in the crisis. She had to shut down all the stores, started streaming just half an hour sessions on different topics. After a while, she realized and started up a monthly subscription for folks from home who could be exercising and learning all the way. Well, this is going to go way beyond her the coronavirus period, and now that's a brand new stream of income for her. It's something she had not been doing, and it allows anybody literally in the world to subscribe, right? Even when she opens back up, those people who are not in a city where she has a physical location now become clients. So that's just one example, but really think about what you can do now. We tend to be forced into things to get creative, unfortunately, but take advantage of that. Looking at a question, at what point of the business life cycle should a business owner honestly consider exit planning or planning for an exit? What occurrences must he or she see in business activity? Thank you, Tom Austin. Yeah, so I'm going to give the answer I always do. Whatever point you are in your business, you should be thinking about exit planning. Again, at least as that midterm, long-term goal, even if you just started up the business, because if you think about it, it's just a target, right? And we all need a long-term goal to work towards. So set out a time. It could be 5 years, could be 10 years, even 20, and think about what that means and what kind of value you're looking to get out of it. I have a client, they have little kids, 6, 7, 8, 10, and their plan is to hand the business over to those kids. So they're talking a 15, 20-year plan. So start early, start doing little by little, start building the pieces. And again, just focus on really managing the business well. From Adriana, have advisors cost money? What strategy to use when you don't have that money to pay for it? Good question. I would say seek out all of the free advice you can get, and there is so much out there these days. What we're doing now. I think the last thing I saw, there's 200 million people on Zoom a day now. Now, a lot of those are internal business meetings, but a lot of them are webinars on every possible topic under the sun. Of course, we can Google, anything you want to Google. Call on friends, other business owners, join networking groups, go to associations, go to the chamber, learn, soak it up. What I've been doing, and I'll throw this out there, over the last several weeks, I've offered an hour to anybody who would like to just chat and start that way as well, complimentary. So let me know that. But there's so many resources out there to look for. Build that team. If you work with an accountant, if you work with a banker, you talk to them. Even if you're not paying them, get some information. They're all out there now with a lot of data and people. And what happens in these crises is that people are helping and very helpful. So there's a lot going on.
David, the offer for an hour of consulting with you, is that available to anyone?
It is available to anyone.
And
yes.
They can sign up for that on your website?
I don't have a sign up there, so I can give you both an email and phone number, if that makes sense right now for the moment.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and post that along with your website in the chat. And
okay.
Later your email and phone number.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for that, David.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's tough times, and I mean, like I say, everybody is out there just working and helping. On whatever topic. If I can't help you directly with a specific issue, we can find somebody.
You did. Can you go ahead and type it in the chat?
I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay, good.
Okay, thanks, Saurel. Okay.
No problem. David, I want everybody to get your full attention, and just to trigger something right now, if I heard you correctly, exit planning is for anyone who's either self-employed or in business for themselves in any way, shape, or form. I'm thinking listeners out there may hear exit planning and they think, oh, yeah, I'm this big firm that's running 10 million, 20 million, and I'm planning how to sell. But if I'm hearing you correctly, it's a set of good practices, best practices to start, run, and grow a business that are necessary for any business, whether you're the realtor who's a sole proprietor, or the photographer who's getting gigs around, or the small business owner who's got 52 employees. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I would say it's perfectly acceptable. There's a lot of professions where you're working and you're putting money away, you're saving money for retirement and so on, and you may not outright sell the business. The principles are still the same in running the business. But I would say, I would suggest not assuming that you can't sell your business. You may be a solo, maybe a couple of people. It may seem small to you, but if you have time, and the desire, there's a lot of ways to build up what we call, a solo practice or a solo business or a small business that may be absolutely sellable. One example is simply thinking ahead enough, finding somebody who does what you do or a complementary service or product to work towards an alliance and maybe merging eventually, right? That's one way to grow the business itself. And it may be a way to exit. Maybe that those two businesses merge. And at some point, there's an agreement where one buys the other one out. And you've monetized the business as a business over time. So it may go one way or the other, but don't assume, especially like I say, if you've got some time, that you aren't able to sell it, and think about it that way. But the basic principle, Saurel, you're absolutely right. We still need to be doing the same things in our business to grow it, run it, build processes that are repeatable. You think about the franchises, the McDonald's we always refer to. Think about what we said about finding the right resources to run the business, eventually easing your way out of the business. Try to see where we might find recurring income that we hadn't had before, the example with the fitness studio.
Awesome. Thank you, David. To you, the studio audience, any questions, anything that you're learning that you want to share, or anything that's now confronting you as a business owner who's now saddled with creating value for your business? It's your turn.
Or any creative things that you are doing now in your business.
I could share something.
Yeah.
And I have a question and a share. So I'm Karina Sephora. I'm an artist, and I do metal sculpture and mixed media work. And what I've created in my business is like sort of a trifecta where I have 3 different aspects for income. And part of that is teaching classes, and then part of that is creating work that's commissions, and then part of that is creating work and then it sells when it sells. That's the slowest, but my favorite part. And so I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, like, what is like a practice that I took on a long time ago is like make a list of everything I do in a day, and then whatever I don't need to do, hire somebody else to do that. And so that works. I like that. But what I've been looking at in changing is most of my classes are live classes because it's very hands-on what I teach. And so I've been looking at how to create video classes. And so and I've been doing some of those webinars and things that you've talked about, different ways of thinking. And, but I've noticed when I ask people that are my students, a lot of them are like, well, we're curious how you got from how you get clients and how you make a business happen and run. And so I just put a survey out to my students and my list to find that out. But I'm listening to you and it's funny because I'm reading the E-Myth right now with a friend. And so we're at the part where they're talking about McDonald's, and that it's like, how do you have a business that runs? And so when I think about mine, if I think about like famous artists, it's like, okay, well, cataloging the collection, and being meticulous about where the work is. Those are some things, right, that I don't always do because we're just sort of, there's other things.
Karina,
yeah.
do you have a specific question that you want to ask David?
I'm kind of rambling towards it, but the question, I guess, is like, what would you say in that case? It's not like a McDonald's, where you can get the processes run. And so the only thing I'm thinking is like, what aspect is the giveaway? And then there's the planning 10 years from now. That's something I could see I could do definitely more of.
Yeah, no, I think you in part answered your question yourself. I love the idea of getting online. And like I say, that's exactly what we're doing here. And it's exactly where everything is going because of the situation. It was there anyway. There were a lot of people obviously online doing a lot of things. But, if anybody thought, if you thought, oh, it's not quite right, I can't really do it. Or, potential students thought that way, they're not anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is, there's so much tutoring going on online on every imaginable thing. I was just talking to a friend whose son is just getting out of school and is a musician, and he's trying to get him to understand he can do tutoring just like we're doing right here. So I would definitely do that. Think about when you're doing those, if there's any classes that you can record and put online, so then you're making money, as they say, while you're sleeping. I don't know if you're selling online. So yeah, all these different things get out of our boxes, right? If you think of something and then your first reaction is, I can't do that. You know, knock that out and say, yeah, figure out how to do it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Karina. There's another question in the chat, David from Austin.
How would you advise a business in this economic time to plan their exit if they have determined a rebound isn't possible, they want to get out and exit properly? Great question. We'll probably have some of that or too much of that. Hopefully some of these supports from the federal government will help. But in the meantime, it's kind of winding down properly. It's, to the extent possible, take a look at what is owed to you, what you might owe other folks. But I would also, on this, spend a couple of dollars on your attorney and CPA to help you really wind down the right way. These are really, really tough times, and the laws out there, the bankruptcy laws out there, all these things are out there for a reason. And so right now you've got to think about yourself and your family. So it's not that you don't or shouldn't want to pay people that you might owe money to, but get some advice around it. You may just have to walk away. And if now is not the time that this is, if not acceptable, at least necessary. But yeah, get that kind of advice. Quick thought on it all: if you are, you don't have to go so far as to do bankruptcy. You may wind everything down, but you may want to hold on to the business, the corporation, the website. If you can keep those things going, maybe things will turn around eventually, so you don't have to start up again. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of that, unfortunately. What else? Any other
comments?
I think one of the things that I can say, one of the things that I'm taking away from your conversation, David, from this conversation that I really love, and it really is confronting me and it's certainly making me grow, is this idea of making myself irrelevant, making myself absolutely irrelevant. That is so against my ego, but it is so forward thinking for the business, right? And also it's just like, it takes me to the next level as a business owner, right? Like I stop thinking of myself as, an actor or a movie star, and I start thinking of myself as a process thinker, value adding kind of human being to the marketplace, rather than to look good. And what I'm hearing and what you're saying is, becoming an absolutely irrelevant person in my business makes my business to be more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
What an amazing thing to be sharing out loud for so many folks like myself who perhaps look at their business as a light on who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense to me. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
No, you're welcome. I'm not suggesting you separate this passionate business you've created from yourself altogether.
No, I get that.
Yeah, you're backing. You're moving higher up. You're still managing it, if you will, but things are happening. And if you make the decision at some point, it's so much easier to sell it. But again, if you think about it, if you're doing that, as we're talking about, your life is going to be easier. Karina was saying, what are all the things that you're doing you just don't want to do, you shouldn't be doing? We all have different things. If you have a service and you're billing for your time, bill for your time. It's probably more than you're paying. You would pay somebody to do some of the administrative things that you're doing. So, but it's a concept we all deal with because we all, like I say, we all have egos. We love what we do. You can still make it a business, and you need to, and still be close to the ground and passionate about it. I'd be curious if there's anybody, if there's anybody here who, who has been forced to do something new, or just, got creative in the last month or two because they've had to. Has anybody done anything, any little thing, how you've marketed or how you've sold or how you've done business development?
I am imagining that everybody here, certainly the Daily Huddle was born out of that, right? But yeah, I don't want to take on the mic. So anyone has a comment to make about that?
I used to call on hospitals for barcode scanning and printing equipment that's used in a variety of the hospital areas. And one of my real estate clients actually sells protective wear. And we all hear that all the hospitals need protective wear, but you have to actually find the right buyer at the right time. And they're so busy right now, but I am trying. And if anyone does have buyers' names, even if they're not in protective wear, maybe they can help me get closer to that person. And in one hospital yesterday, I was actually put to, it's a smaller hospital actually where I am right now. And they put me through to the head legal person that probably works on quality control, so that's how stringent things are when you work in a hospital environment. So that's how I had to pivot. Remember that word?
Yeah. It's used a lot these days. Anybody, I've got a client, anybody in the marketing communications arena, think about, they have to change all of their messaging, and not just in the next couple of weeks or months. It's going to be a couple of years at least, right? Think about, they've got to communicate to all their employees, whether they're laying some off or bringing them back on, and then it's going to be a slow rise back in. They've got to communicate to all of their vendors. They've got to communicate to all of the marketplace, all of their customers and clients out there. And it's all going to be around this crisis and coming out of it. So there's just all kinds of work there to repurpose messaging, to do every kind of marketing communications. I've got one colleague who had a call and said, "Hey, can you help us do a brochure?" A what? A printed brochure. Who does this anymore? And they're going to mail it snail mail, right? So these things, you're going to see them all out there. Keep your eye on the news and steal these ideas. How can you apply them to your business? There's a ton of, like I say, forced creativity going on out there. This is right. What Saurel and Giovanni are doing now. That, hey, they're helping. They're providing a service, right? But they're giving exposure to all of you, to their speakers, to themselves. That may be one huge immediate thing. What we see most often in crisis is people don't spend money on marketing. I always say, if there's one thing you're going to spend money on, it's, or time, right, is the branding, the marketing. These days, getting out on LinkedIn and posting and being visible and blogging costs you zero. Do that and maintain relationships, both with vendors and customers, or prospects you may have had that didn't quite pull the trigger before this happened. Get out in front of them. Do what I did. Call them up. Ask them how they're doing. Hey, would you like to talk for an hour about what's going on in your world? It's just, in the one sense, we all have time, right? To the extent that you all used to drive like I did, all that drive time is gone. I would challenge you on two things. Use that time, but also take a little downtime in the mix as well, because we need those breaks a little bit.
Awesome, David. Thank you for everyone who participated. David, we are going to give you the last word, but I want to accentuate the challenge that you've posed to each of us. So to all of the people out there listening, David has challenged you, and I do mean you personally, to make yourself irrelevant, completely irrelevant to your business. And what you're telling us, David, is that the revenue streams that our businesses rely on should not depend on us. Let's make ourselves irrelevant to the revenue streams. the processes and systems that actually help our business operate. Let's make ourselves irrelevant to the existence, the sustainability, and the effectiveness of those processes. And last but not least, let's make ourselves irrelevant to the profitability of the business. So I'm picturing this little package. You know, like you go to Starbucks, you get a cup of coffee, and somebody pays you for it. It's literally when I make myself irrelevant to my business, then the business in its totality is this package, just like a cup of coffee that I can hand over to someone and they pay me for it. So I cannot think of any more worthy challenge to take on than to make yourself irrelevant to the existence of your business. David, thank you so much for creating that for us. You have the last word, my friend.
No, I appreciate it. It was a pleasure to be here, and I will just add to it, think about asking around in a variety of ways for help and advice on these things. Think about value a little bit in what it means in your world, and do a little bit of planning, have a little bit of fun. We will get through this crisis. We really will.
Indeed, we will. Well, thank you to the studio audience. Giovanni, as my co-host, thank you so much for creating the Daily Huddle. Anything you want to say to close?
Saurel, I don't have anything else to say, but thank you to David, thank you to you, and thank you for everybody in the audience. Everybody has a great day.
And as a member of the studio audience, if you enjoyed the information you got today, share it with others. Go to the Daily Huddle official Facebook page, like it if you haven't, and share it with your friends and your colleagues. We exist to serve you and the community, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do that. Thank you, and have an awesome day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.